Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City. What you saw was not a car being moved by pushing it forward. This is actually a self-propelled car. All I have to do is pull it back, let go, and it goes forward. And that's because this is a rubber band powered car. Let me tell you a bit about the background history on such a car. Several years ago, when I was just 13 years old, I was taking a design and technical class. This is one of the subjects we had to take. This is one of 9 subjects that we had to take in secondary 1. So design and technical class is basically like woodworking, although we worked with wood and metal over the years. But basically we had to take it for the first 2 years of secondary school, and the idea is to give kids an all-rounded education. So besides doing math, science, the languages, geography and history, humanities, we also had to do art as well as design and technology. In the first semester of this subject, I failed terribly. I just didn't get it. I couldn't get the tools, I didn't get the practical techniques, and I think I failed. I'm quite sure I failed. And for some reason, in the second half of the year or the next semester, everything clicked and I just aced this particular subject. It was my highest subject, was probably the top in class, and for no other reason than it just clicked. And during the second semester, we had to do a woodworking project. And basically you had to make some kind of vehicle. So I decided to work on a car, and without any reference material, I basically designed a Formula 1 car, built it out of wood, and decided that I could actually make it self-propelled by using a rubber band. And I came up with the design that you're going to see with this particular Lego car. Now several years later, and I've done a little bit of research, many people have designed this car, but I did design it independently when I was 13 years back. So I wanted to see if it was possible to build it with Lego. And on a casual search on YouTube, I found that several people have also built a rubber band car out of Lego. However, they're all using Technic parts and they are really big, and that's just necessary for the mechanics to work. But I wanted to design a rubber band self-propelling car in the Speed Champion scale. For example, this is the Macallan 720S, and of course this is also another Speed Champions car. And what I've done, and this is really just a concept, and this is purely to show you the concept. I will integrate the build in just a bit, but I've basically taken the shell of the Speed Champions car and placed it on the chassis that I built to make it self-propelling. And I'll show you the mechanism in just a bit, but you can see the scale is right because the chassis is correct in terms of the size, in terms of the width, as well as the wheel base. So I'm very happy with this design because I managed to fit it within the scale of the Speed Champions. This opens up a whole lot of possibilities for you to make your car self-propelling and have even more play features than just pushing the car. And kids, if you are building this, or parents, if you are building this for kids, this also brings the build to another level of difficulty in terms of creating the mechanics to create this self-propelling car. Now let me show you the concept behind the design and the design of my chassis. And here's a closer look at my car. Bear in mind, this is just the concept build. I will be integrating the chassis better with the shell of the car. But the car shell is actually quite important right now because of the weight. The weight is important to propel the car forward, and I'll explain why in just a bit. But first, let me just remove this shell over the chassis, and this is basically it. It uses a rubber band, and this is just a normal rubber band, and let me just remove this piece, and it is looped over this back axle and comes over to a vertical shaft that comes down just like that. Now these parts use Technic connectors and axle pieces, but the rest is brick built. So the idea is this: as you pull the car back and the car tires rotate back, what happens is the rubber band goes round the back axis just like that. So it coils round, creating and building up the tension. When you release it, the rubber band uncoils, propelling the wheels forward and causing the entire car to propel forward. So that's the basic concept, and when I built this in wood, that's exactly very close to what I did. Instead of this connector, I basically had a steel eyelet which I screwed in to a piece of wood, and I had the band looped around the axle again, and it hooked onto that steel eyelet hook, and it served the same purpose. Of course, we don't have pieces that go in this way, and if you did, it would just pull out. So it had to be a vertical 90-degree drop down like this. And I'll open this up in just a bit to show you how that's done. Now, but that's the concept. The reason why you need weight on it is when you pull this back, it will coil the rubber band. Now, however, if the tension is too strong, what happens is if there's no weight on the vehicle, basically the wheels will just spin without the car moving forward. So it's just like the car spinning stationary on the surface or on the table, on the floor. But by putting weight on it, it ensures there's contact and friction with the surface, which is why the car then propels forward. So having a shell or a body is important to build it on the car for that added weight. So now let's look at the design itself. So it's 4 studs across. That's the basis of my build, or the scale that I want to do. You could of course do whatever size you want, but remember, my intention is to use the Speed Champion scale. So it's 4 studs across, and over here we have, I believe it's 14 studs long. Let me just double check that. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. It's 12 studs long. So it's 4 across and 12 studs long. That's the dimensions for this chassis if you want to replicate the scale. And you have to build it a certain way. So this is pretty straightforward. This, you're using a Technic connector, and that's an axle cross part, and you are putting it through Technic bricks. But these bricks are just the ones with the circles, not the cross, because you need this axle to be free moving. So you can't use the Technic bricks with the cross, because then it'll be stuck and the wheels will not move. You need this entire axis to be free moving. I've deliberately used different colored plates so that you can clearly see the separation between the plates, and you can see that there are actually multiple layers here. I've actually got an additional plate here, and the reason is you need to create enough space for the rubber band to coil. If not, everything just gets stuck and bunched up, and the rubber band gets stuck and the car will not move. So you do need to create space here. Then I needed to create the body of the chassis, and the reason why there are different layers here is simply because you need to have a strong connection. So these pieces are actually sandwiching the chassis body, call it the plates which form the chassis body. So all these plates, you see the black plates, they're sandwiching the connection point, so it makes it really strong. So let me open this up. So I'm going to take out this plate. This is a 4x4 plate, and you can see that's how the chassis looks like. Now we come to this particular part. This is a bit more tricky, so you need a specific part. Let me remove the rubber band. Oh, by the way, I'm going to show you something really cool with rubber bands at the end of the video, so make sure you watch to the end. So notice this is a Technic part here. I have this knob which pulls off, and this is actually a stopper, and that's to prevent it from being easily pulled off. This comes over here, and this is this Technic piece here. Again, there's another knob or connector piece or coupling which is at the end of this pin, and the reason is a rubber band will be looped here on this side, and you just want some kind of a stopper so that the rubber band doesn't slide off easily. Over this side I have a pin, but it's this particular cross pin with a stopper at the end, and that's important because notice I've got Technic bricks here, and I've got one cross and one the circle sort of brick. So there are 2 bricks here, and this goes through like this. Because of the stopper at the end, there's no way this pin can be pulled out. That's really important, because when the rubber band is being pulled, there's a lot of tension, and if you don't have these stoppers or you don't design it in a way that the pins are held in place tightly, everything just pulls off and your car will just break apart. This goes on like that to create that drop down, and then I have that knob part which locks it into place. But I go one step further with my design, because this comes over here, and notice the chassis that acts as another stopper. So now there's no way that this pin can drop out. So let's put this back together. So this goes here. Those are the wheels. Now it's important you don't press the wheels completely tight, because you want to make sure it's free moving. Even if there's a bit of friction, you just want to pull it out by 1 mm or so, just to make sure it's really nice and free moving. And that's for the front and the back. Now I'm going to just put this back so it's secure. And you're going to thread the rubber band. So you just take a rubber band, loop it, and you want to make sure that the rubber band goes forward like that. Now notice there's a lot of slack, right? So it really depends on the size of the rubber band. So here's the thing, if you use a smaller rubber band, it may fit very nicely, but you may not get much elastic tension out of it. So there's not much elastic force, so that when you move it back, it doesn't coil up so much, because it's too short and the car can't go very fast. But if the rubber band is too long like this, there's not enough tension. So you just need to loop this around 2 or 3 times, so there's a bit of tension, so that when you do pull back the car, the rubber band will move back. Okay, so this has to be tight as well. So there is a bit of experimenting to do. So you just need to make sure that this loop here is really tight to your axle. So you can see that now, that is coiling back around the axle. And that's how the car's propelled forward. One thing to note in terms of the design, these 2 Technic bricks are held to the plate only with 2 studs on each side. And often if you coil this too much and there's just too much force, these bricks just fly off the studs. So I have made things a bit better by putting this plate. It just evens out the force, so that helps a bit, but with too much tension it would still break apart. I might find a better design if I can really lock these bricks, but the challenge is creating enough space for the rubber band, creating enough space here so that the rubber band can coil up, as you can see, because if it's too tight it will not coil up, it will just get stuck and you won't have room to release. So if you build a better version of this, do let me know. This is still at the concept phase, but I wanted to share it to show you how you can really bring your speed champions up to the next level. Let me know if you're interested to get building instructions for the chassis. Annie can create the building instructions and we will do it if there's enough interest. So if you are interested in getting building instructions for this chassis so that you can build it and then take your own Speed Champions car and build it on top of it, do let us know in the comments, and if we have time, or we'll find time. If there's enough interest, we will find time and we'll create the instructions for free for you guys, so let us know. Remember I said I'll show you something cool with rubber bands? Check this out. I've got 2 rubber bands. I'll place each on my index finger and thumb. But first I'll loop the rubber bands together so there's nowhere to go. Watch. And you get the illusion that the rubber bands melt through each other just like that. I hope you enjoyed this video on the Lego rubber band car in the Speed Champion scale. Remember, if you want building instructions for the chassis, please let me know in the comments. I really hope you build this car, and if you do, please remember to share it in the comments. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.